When chaos suddenly strikes, human beings don't have to learn how to feel helpless. It is our brain's factory setting. In the 1960s, scientists placed dogs in hammocks and subjected them to mild, inescapable shocks. The next day, the researchers moved the animals to a shuttle box where they could easily escape the shocks by jumping a low barrier. But the dogs that had endured the inescapable shocks didn't even try. They just lay down. The researchers concluded that the dogs experienced learned helplessness. The theory suggested that when animals or humans endure enough uncontrollable bad events, we learn that our actions don't matter, an idea that dominated psychology for decades. It took 50 years and modern brain imaging to reveal the truth. We don't learn helplessness. When the brain encounters an uncontrollable situation, it triggers an automatic freeze response. Helplessness is our hardwired default. To overcome this passive state, the ventromedial prefrontal cortex must detect hope, actively inhibiting the freeze response. We don't learn to give up, we learn to hope. If biology dictates that we surrender to chaos by default, the challenge becomes physical. We have to literally build the neural circuits required to take control of our lives. Positive thinking on its own fails because the brain requires direct evidence that change is possible to build these pathways. And to gather that proof, we first have to strip away the safety labels that actively steal our power. A 26-year-old man, known in medical literature as Mr. A, burst into an emergency room gasping for breath. He was participating in a clinical drug trial for a new antidepressant. Following an argument, he had swallowed all 29 remaining capsules in his bottle at once and collapsed. His blood pressure plummeted and his breathing grew shallow, but Mr. A was actually in the placebo group. He had overdosed on sugar pills. His severe physical collapse was driven entirely by the nocebo effect, the phenomenon where expecting harm creates the physiological reality of it. Psychologists find that diagnostic labels can function as cognitive nocebos. When we uncritically accept a diagnosis like burnout or ADHD, we risk identity foreclosure, prematurely committing to a limited version of ourselves before testing our actual boundaries. This creates a ceiling on potential. A student who decides they are not a math person stops attempting the subject, reinforcing a struggle that might have originated from a single poorly taught class. The label transforms a temporary symptom into a permanent definition of capability. A 2024 Harvard study confirmed this effect, showing that labeling an individual with major depression or anxiety actually made both the patient and the people around them more pessimistic about recovery. Proper diagnoses are essential maps for guiding treatment. But when you allow a diagnostic label to become your complete identity, it saps your initiative and traps you in your brain's default state of helplessness. To reclaim agency, we have to impose order on a chaotic world. In Michigan, one atheist found a way to do this by donning a wizarding robe and performing his own meticulously structured secular rituals. The physicist Erwin Schrödinger observed that life is an active battle against entropy, the universe's pull toward disorder. Human brains fight this chaos by seeking predictable patterns. Rituals provide a reliable structure that imposes order on everyday life. Research shows that regular engagement in structured rituals yields measurable biological changes. Practitioners develop thicker cerebral cortices, better stress responses, and increased endurance under pressure. These upgrades appear across various religious traditions and entirely secular practices alike. They are driven by universal human psychology, not by the specifics of theology. You do not need perfect philosophical alignment or absolute faith to begin a practice that builds resilience. We often assume we must wait for absolute conviction before taking a step, but the physical act of doing is exactly what shapes our emotional habits. Action precedes understanding. In 1960, after a remote mountain path delayed medical care that could have saved his pregnant wife's life, Dashrath Manji picked up a hammer and a rough iron chisel. Instead of succumbing to passive grief, he began striking solid rock. He decided the mountain had to go. His tools were meager, and the stone was quartzite. Villagers called him insane. But for 22 solitary years, he kept hammering. Chip by chip, he carved a passage 360 feet long and 25 feet deep through the solid earth, reducing a 40-mile detour to just 9 miles. Decades later, a medical student named David Feigenbaum faced the intellectual equivalent of that mountain. Diagnosed with a rare, fatal disease, his organs were failing. Knowing that over 80% of approved drugs are already generic, with no profit incentive for companies to find new uses for them, Feigenbaum refused to wait for a miracle. He co-founded an organization that uses artificial intelligence to hunt for life-saving applications hidden within existing medications. The entire system operates on a functional shift in belief. Patients must actively participate in discovering answers, rather than passively waiting for external rescue. True agency requires targeted moments of control. Every hammer strike, every algorithmic scan, serves as direct evidence that your actions matter, steadily rewiring your biological defaults. Our beliefs function as the operating systems of our experience, filtering what we perceive and dictating the version of reality we ultimately inhabit. Hope without action offers nothing but false comfort, and action without hope quickly burns out into exhaustion. Lasting progress requires executing both in parallel. As Arnold Schwarzenegger noted, you can't climb the ladder of success with your hands in your pockets. The trail awaits. If you want to continue rewiring your defaults, hit subscribe to join us for the next breakdown.